Thanks everybody for joining. I am Elaine Chang. I'm the CEO of TaroWorks, and as you heard, that was Riley Harding. She'll be assisting us. She is TaroWorks' manager of marketing and communications, so you might have seen her name on a lot of emails, maybe this invitation. So thanks again for joining. We have a really great topic today. As some background, at TaroWorks, we are an app that helps nonprofits and social enterprises working in places that are offline or have little to no connectivity to help these organizations manage their field operations and have better transparency into their data and activities in the field. So we work with a lot of organizations who want to empower their mobile users with data, and so that they can provide that impact at the last mile where they're working, and hopefully scale what their impact is and what their activities are with better data-driven decision making. I think when we work with these nonprofits and social enterprises, we find that partnerships are a really critical aspect of success and driving missions. And as these organizations scale, partnerships seem to play a bigger role as these organizations maybe go into new areas. The partnerships might bring in more local context, more local knowledge. We've seen sort of two different scenarios for scaling with partners. Clients are sometimes adding partners to their platforms once they start scaling. So maybe they're starting in one country, and as they scale, they add on partners. Another scenario is that from the very beginning, clients are also relying on partners as part of their operating model. So either way, we've been able to help these organizations with their different partnership models. And for today, we'll be delving into that a little bit more. I think as a technology provider, TaroWorks, we have a tool, but we're also very cognizant that for successful implementations, there's equally important or equal emphasis needs to be placed on the design of a system, the rollout, and the adoption by all the parties. And so for a single organization, this can already be a really big, these can already be very big considerations to ensure successful rollouts. And so I also want to dig into, if you're trying to get third-party partners using these systems as well, what does that adoption look like? So we'll be exploring that today. We're excited to be joined by today's guests. So we have Pragya Shah, the program officer for Praxis, and we have Alfred Mooley from the M&E manager for Street Business School. So very excited for everyone to be here. Alfred's joining from Nairobi, Kenya, and Pragya's in Nepal. So thanks for your flexibility and your hours, and thanks for being with us today. And then, great. Before we launch into the panel, I want to go over some housekeeping rules. And I think Riley have some poll questions teed up as well for the audience. So maybe you can tee that up while I go over the housekeeping rules. So in terms of housekeeping rules, we are, okay, great. Sorry. So the session is being recorded, so you can find the recording on the TaroWorks YouTube channel afterwards, in addition to recordings of all of our past webinars and lots of other resources as well. So just want to let you know that we are being recorded. Everybody is on mute by default. If you have a question, please put it into the question box. Hopefully you see that in the little pop-up in your GoToWebinar dialog box. You can add it into the question box there. Riley will be monitoring that throughout the session. And then we'll have kind of a Q&A panel, and so if there are additional questions, I'll ask them sort of at the end. So please get those in.
Awesome.
Okay, great. I think that's it for the housekeeping rules. Pretty simple. How are we doing on the poll, Riley?
We're about 40% of people voted. I'm gonna wait a couple more seconds, get your votes in.
I think this is a good way to kind of just see who's in the audience. So
yeah. Great. Okay. I'm about 60% now. So I think, yeah, I'll close the poll. Okay.
great. Looks
okay.
like.
Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, it looks like a lot of people are here to look for a tool to share their work with partners. So great. Hopefully you'll be able to learn from Alfred and Pragya.
Amazing.
Okay, great. I think before I go into the actual panel, just in terms of the format, we'll do some quick introductions from both Alfred and Pragya so that they can share more about what their organization does and what their journey's been so far. And then we'll go into the questions to delve into more of the partnership content. Okay, so I think at this point, Alfred, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Alfred Muli, and I lead the evaluation team at Street Business School. So just small background about Street Business School. We are a non-profit that has offices in Uganda and in the United States. So we actually, our roots started in Uganda, and now we've since spread to quite a number of countries, working with a lot of partners. So our organization, we are on a mission to end global poverty. We empower women to become thriving entrepreneurs, and in the process, they lift themselves and their families out of poverty to more vibrant and thriving futures. We do entrepreneurship training, but quite in a unique way. So we equip the women. Where we work directly, we equip the women, but of course our partners work with both men and women. But we equip people to start and grow small businesses. We equip them with business skills, and then on the other side, we also equip them with what we call confidence building. And we do confidence building through what we call coaching. So we really work with this entrepreneur, whom we actually call coach. And just for them, I'm sure in the subsequent slides, I'll talk a lot about coaches. So basically a coach at Street Business School is anyone who interacts with Street Business School. We call ourselves coaches because we believe there is something we learn from each other. So the women, the men that run those small businesses at the communities, they are coaches. The facilitators are coaches, and even us, the staff, and staff from our partner organizations, they are also coaches. So coach is a word that you will hear me mention quite a lot. So a lot of the people we work with are actually people living in poverty, and some of them with no formal education. So our curriculum has been contextualized to work at the local level. We train at least 2 people per organization, and those 2 people go to their communities and recruit now these coaches that they train on entrepreneurship and of course confidence building, and those coaches then start those small businesses. And we've seen that work quite a lot in different contexts. Next slide, please. Riley, next slide, please. Okay, perfect. So we do know that Street Business School works, or our program works, and we know that because we've run, randomized controlled trials, but we're also big on data. We're very keen on what type of data we collect, and we make sure that we actually use that data for decision making and for strategic purposes. So, for example, in a recent randomized controlled trial that we ran in Uganda, there was an increase of 149% increase in income as compared to the control group. So this was, a randomized control trial that ran during COVID. So again, impressive as it was again happening around COVID. So when we go back 2 years later, our program has 211% increase in income for graduates who had started businesses after the Street Business School training. That's for our direct delivery in Uganda, and through our partners who are spread across that 3 countries, their increase in income after 1 year is 163%. For that randomized control trial, again, I really like that one to reference quite a lot about that randomized control trial. We also saw a 3 to 4% higher score on grit measures. Here we are looking at women's sense of resilience and perseverance, which was great again because that study was being run through the COVID period. Now we work through partners through what we call social franchising. So in these in these are 3 countries with these 210 partners, we don't have offices. We actually believe in localization, and we believe that communities are they are the experts. The coaches are the experts of their communities, and so we only share this proven method with them, and they are the ones who would go and contextualize it to what would actually work in their communities. And I'm sure you're wondering, do you only work with organizations that do livelihood trainings? Not really. So our program, again, we like to see it as an add-on, or as adding value or amplifying impact for all these other sectors. So at the moment, we have these 210 partners spread across these 3 countries in 3 continents, and they are addressing 16 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we have, partners working in education, partners working in health, and they use Street Business School to amplify their impact, or really, make sure that the work they are doing has more sustained impact. So that's really much about Street Business School and our partners. So we actually started in Uganda, refined the curriculum, and then in 2017 we now open this up to our partners, and this number keep growing. Every day we have new partners joining the program. I'll of course share on the chat how you can join the movement, and who you can reach out to also just join this great movement of organizations that are using Street Business School as a tool to amplify their impact, regardless of the sectors that they work in. Next slide, please. Now, so we, our data collection process, all the data is collected using TaroWorks, the offline data collection app, and all that information is then pushed to a cloud-based system, Salesforce. So Salesforce acts as our database, ideally. Of course, from the, the Street Business School side of things, we're able to view the partner data, we're able to clean the data, and we're also able to get some insights from the data that is coming in. But of course, for the partners, they also have what we call the TaroWorks community page, or the TaroWorks community portal, where they can access their data, again in real time. So the moment you collect your data using TaroWorks, you sync your device, it reflects automatically, and you're able to see these dashboards. As you can see on the right side, you can see the the mobile user, the name of the mobile user, and then on the left you can also see the different links. So the very first one, which is the home link, is where you can see those 3 dashboards or those 3 reports. Of course, the first one showing the percentage of graduates by gender. We have the change in income between baseline and exit, and we also have the change in income between, or rather, we have the percentage of graduates with at least 1 business at exit. Down there, you'll see view M&D data. That's where the partners would be able to access the granular level data. So for example, how many coaches, what was their income, their date of birth, location of the businesses, all that information you can view under view or M&D data. It's actually also on that particular link where they can export their data and do additional analysis in Excel or whichever tool they use to do analysis. And the last one there, which is view full partner dashboard, they're able to view additional dashboards outside of these 3. So we have dashboards on total trained. Also be able to see the change in income between baseline and post program, for example. Yeah, so you're able to view all that using this particular dashboard. Again, partners can access their data anytime, and they can use this for for decision making. We actually have quite a number of partners who use these charts for fundraising and just sharing progress with the different stakeholders, including the donors, the board, but also their staff internally. Just to mention the structure of the program, we collect baseline data before the training, and then through the training we collect what we call mid-training data, which is heavily qualitative, and then before graduating we collect exit data, and then 1 year later we come back to collect post-program. So ideally the program is 6 months and before they graduate, but some partners again are able to contextualize this depending on their context, but also the different situations in their organization or in their community. So for example, would have someone run this program for longer to align with their donor reporting timelines and things like those. But ideally the program is a 6-month program where of course you acquire the business skills, but we also work with you through what we call coaching. We actually visit those businesses and do coaching at the venue. Sometimes we also do the coaching at the businesses. So yeah, that's a lot about Street Business School, but you can definitely in case you have any questions, please have them on the chat and we'll respond to them. Thank you.
This is great, Alfred. Thank you so much. Those are some very impressive impact numbers, I think, the metrics that you shared. So very excited to see that kind of growth. Great, thanks. Okay, Pragya, over to you to learn more about Praxis.
Thank you, Eileen. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining for today's webcast. So I'm Pragya, I work with Praxis. I'll just give a brief introduction about our work at Praxis. We work on people-centered research and capacity building, focused on social equity and inclusion. We create platforms for dialoguing and influence policy making with grounded expertise. Our areas of expertise is participatory research, capacity building, documentation, and dissemination of pro-poor research initiatives, both at national and international level. Now I can briefly share about pathways. So Riley, maybe we can move to the next slide. Yes, thank you. Pathways is an integrated case management system. We designed it to help the frontline organizations working with vulnerable communities to track their clients' journey, as well as keep a record of the community, other partner organization and groups they work and engage with. We've hosted this application on a cloud-based service system called Salesforce, which is designed for organizations, again, working at grassroots level. We work with 26 grassroots level organizations who are located across different parts of northern and southern parts of India, so Rajasthan, Bihar, UP, and Tamil Nadu. These partners have been helping and assisting the communities, supporting them to have access to government schemes, social securities, entitlements, link them with several activities, helping them with livelihood support trainings and other programs. If we look at pathways, it works in a two-way. It works in a two-way process. So there's one which is in the desktop form. So the desktop users use it as pathways, and then there is the second one wherein we are using TaroWorks, which is meant for our frontline workers who work at the field, who are the mobile users. So at the desktop level, they generally keep a track on the status of the case. They can also do a double check of the data updates shared by the mobile users and accordingly make changes to the cases. They are also able to assign tasks, maybe follow-up tasks and other related activities which are related to a case. And also they are ultimately able to analyze data using reports through and also through dashboards. And if we look at mobile users, they provide data directly from the field. They are also able to interact with the client, and together with the client, they are able to share updates from the field, identify their needs. They can also link the clients with the support services or engage them with the activities using the mobile application. They can follow up on tasks and again provide an update to the desktop user regarding the status of the task, ultimately ensuring timely delivery of services to the clients. So this is about pathways and how it works. Maybe we can move to the next slide, Riley. Yeah. And this is, here we have screenshots related to TaroWorks, so the home page, and how we have also designed a few forms specifically keeping in mind the needs and requirements of our partners who are working across different locations in India. Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Pragya. Seems like you're doing a lot, lots of different activities happening in the field. It's great, thank you. Okay, so I think for the next portion, we'll do a panel discussion. We have some questions prepared that we'll talk through, but if you have additional questions that you'd like to ask the panelists, please add that into the question section. Okay, we can go to the first question. So I think now that the audience has a good overview of what each organization does and what the system is being used for, kind of digging more into the journey of how you've gotten here. You've both sort of talked about this already, but maybe just kind of deep diving into this a little bit more. How specifically is, I'll say not just TaroWorks, but like Salesforce and TaroWorks being used for the partnership? Maybe Alfred, I'll start with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, basically, we use TaroWorks for the, the on-ground data collection from all these different locations that our partners are based. And then we use Salesforce as, the database where all this information comes in. We do the, the cleaning and the data visualization, and just, picking out the insights and sharing internally, but also externally with the partners, depending on what insights we are gathering. So really, we use, the TaroWorks for all the processes from, the recruitment of the partner, or rather recruitment of the cohorts, and the cohort here is the group that comprises these, women or men entrepreneurs that are being trained on Street Business School. And then we use that for all the impact data collection at the 4 different levels. So at baseline, at mid-training, at exit, which is our end line, and then post-program. So that's how we use that. And like I mentioned earlier, partners are able to access their data and only their data through the TaroWorks community portal or page. And of course, for us as Street Business School, we are able to access everyone's data on Salesforce. So again, even the TaroWorks community page, the reports actually built within Salesforce, and then they are broadcasted on the TaroWorks portal. Yeah, and so we basically are the ones we provide this for free to partners. So it's actually Street Business School that pays for the licenses, and we again train the partners on how to use the app. Thank you.
Thanks, Alfred. And Pragya?
Yes. So I like in terms of partnerships, I feel using TaroWorks, we have also been able to ensure participation of the clients. So they are able to, while the field workers collect data or while they interact with them, they are able to have their participation, the client's participation also. Also, Salesforce has been a safe platform for the partners to have their data on, and these platforms have also been helpful for the frontline workers. It has been a tool for the frontline workers to capture real-time update from the field, which ultimately helps them to provide continued support to their clients. The frontline workers are also able to work at areas in locations where they had been struggling with internet connectivity or areas with no connectivity at all. This is also the partnership has also helped in streamlining the entire case management process, wherein there are features which helps the desktop users to assign task, set task or follow up activities as a reminder, and also for the mobile workers to keep a track of where they are with the task and what could be the next step. So it has helped them, both the desktop users as well as the mobile users, with planning and monitoring their activities. We've also realized while we were interacting with our partners when we were at the phase of developing pathways, we realized there was a lot of interaction happened through social media applications like WhatsApp. To an extent, it has reduced, and now they have shifted from those social media applications to these platforms. Yes. So,
Great, thanks, Pragya. And actually, that's a perfect segue for my next question. You mentioned that people are sort of using social media before switching over to this this platform. Maybe can you describe what your journey with Salesforce and TaroWorks has been? So what systems were you using previously, and then why did you choose to go to a Salesforce and TaroWorks platform? Maybe Pragya, just maybe following up on that last thought, I'll start with you.
Sure. So when just to give a brief about how we developed pathways. So we had multiple visits and consultations with our partners working in different locations, through which we tried to understand what was their current case management practice and what type of challenges were they facing. through which we understood the dependence was largely on the paper pen files. And they did one of the challenges that they shared was especially in locations which were prone to disaster issues. They shared their fear of losing some of their data getting damaged. And another thing was also difficulty in keeping track of their cases, since there were multiple files and multiple follow-ups related to a single case. It was becoming very difficult for them to keep a track of the case, and also the task of follow-up visits that were attached to a particular case. Um, so these were two like main challenges that they shared, and through these interactions we also got an understanding of the a cycle of case management. So basically we understood there are four key elements involved. So first step being intake, where they for the first time interact with the client, and then they accordingly plan, map their activities, they implement, they monitor, and then they do a follow-up on it. So based on this understanding, we developed pathways, and then came TaroWork, where which we rolled out in 2022, which extended its support system to the frontline workers, who were again using mostly dependent for providing short updates, like maybe updates from any community meeting, or share if they wanted to share any pictures on that. So they mostly relied on different social media platforms. And one of the difficulty for them was also maintaining multiple registers for each for different meetings, or as for different time periods. So that's where then we linked TaroWorks with Pathways, and then rolled it out on in the year 2022, extending our support to the frontline workers.
Great, thanks. Yeah, a lot of challenges there, but hopefully it's all working smoothly now. And Alfred, what's the journey been like for you for Salesforce and TaroWorks?
Yeah, it's been quite similar to Praxis journey. So we used to use pen and paper. So the data would be collected on pen and paper, and then it would be entered into Excel, and then we'd use that Excel spreadsheet to upload into Salesforce. And it was working because we didn't have many partners, but then as time went by, that was quite overwhelming, and you'd also find the data had a lot of issues, quality issues, data quality issues, and so that's how we then engaged TaroWorks, which we really got a lot of support. In fact, a lot of our first trainings were done by TaroWorks. TaroWorks also supported us in building the forms and the first set of jobs. Yeah, so it was easy, it was an easier and smooth transition from pen to paper. Now, for example, we collect a lot of data on income, right? And we collect this per business. So you can imagine if you add a long questionnaire and you are collecting for the different businesses, for people with more than one business, you would need to enter all that. But then with TaroWorks, you can use, for example, the skip logic. If someone doesn't have a business, they won't even see the questions on business. So that's, for example, a really cool functionality within the app that saves a lot of time. So the data collection process was quite tedious, and we spent a lot of time with data collection and the quality issues, and the app basically solved a lot of those challenges. Now, as we are growing, and we were getting all this diverse set of partners, like you've seen, we have partners addressing 16 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but also the other diversity within our partners is that we have huge NGOs, the biggest NGOs in the region, but we also have very small grassroots organizations. So we had to find a solution that would work for those extremes. we have people working in urban centers where, for example, the data collection process and syncing is not a big deal, but we also have partners deep in remote areas where, like internet is an issue. So we're also looking for an offline data collection app that would make work easier for all those partners. So yeah, then we went ahead and built a system within Salesforce that can accommodate all those data collection processes. Just to mention that for us, the Salesforce system accommodates all the business processes within Street Business School. In fact, even partners applying to attend the workshop, they do that through a different channel, but all that information gets to Salesforce. So really for us, our Salesforce system is like one-stop shop for all the teams. Yeah, thanks.
That's great. Yeah, that's sort of the goal, is kind of centralizing all that information so that you have everything on hand. Okay, so great. So you were experiencing these challenges and you found the right tools that will address the problems. And sort of, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that's just half of the problem. I think the other half is, how do you ensure good uptake of that tool by partners? So the next question is, how do you ensure uptake and continuous learning of the system by third-party partners? I think both of, well, I think more so Street Business School, probably it sounds like people are using social media already, but like, how do you digitize these users as well to move from something manual to digital? Maybe Alfred, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting journey. I was just looking at the archives, and our first TaroWorks license was allocated in January of 2019. And now we have, close to 500 licenses already active and allocated to partners. We'll be crossing the 500 mark sometime in August. So, and it was, at the time, again, very few partners. It was easier to manage all those processes. But as the partners and the numbers kept growing, we had to find creative ways of supporting the partners. So we have the initial training, generally about monitoring and evaluation, but also a very focused on how to use the data collection app. So we do these in person for those who are attending in-person workshops, and if it's the online groups, we do these virtually. And then of course we have quarterly refresher trainings to make sure that the partners continuously engage and learn from each other. Sometimes some of these refresher trainings, we allowed them sometimes to even just share the experiences and the challenges that they are facing, and then you discover, oh, I thought it was just a challenge in my organization. It's just similar across the board. And of course, some of those challenges that we faced, again, we work closely with TaroWorks team to resolve that, because TaroWorks has a really good support system for all the partners. So in most cases, in case a partner has a challenge, they would write to us, and then we'd reach out to TaroWorks and jointly are able to resolve any of those issues. But then you also have what we call office hours. Once a month, we have 3 hours dedicated for partners to just show up and ask any question they have about the app or about monitoring and evaluation, or even technical questions around the the business training or the coaching. And of course, we have closed Facebook pages that partners can reach out, and they also have an email that is dedicated for support. In case they have any challenge, they would also reach out. So we have different opportunities for supporting the partners. We've also moved ahead and done instructional videos for partners to be able to utilize the app. And we've actually seen quite a significant number of partners who initially struggled with using the app, but now they are also able to use the app. And I think, of course, the community portal, where they're able to see their data in real time, has also encouraged a lot of partners to use the app. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, on that last note, I want to dig in a little bit later in a subsequent question, but that's great. It sounds like there's a lot of resources that you've provided. That's awesome. Pragya, what about at Praxis?
So some things that Alfred mentioned, so a few similar activities like we also conducted series of refresher training, especially during the COVID times. We also meet our partners on fortnightly basis. And when we did the physical training, in-person training, we also use some case stories and do role play where they are able to connect to the case scenario they usually deal with at the ground level. Um, Apart from that, we have also one contact point person from each of the organization. So this really helps us in better coordination, and the coordination becomes easier. In case there are multiple queries, the contact point person also gets in touch with us, the Pathways team. And if we feel there's a need of any one-to-one meeting or any one-to-one hand-holding support required, we do connect through the virtual mode. The another way is also staying connected with them on continuous basis. So in case they face any kind of issues, any errors, they also send some screenshots, they share it with us. They also get in touch with us through phone calls. Ensuring uptake, we also do customization since our partners work in diverse location, and their activities also, some of the activities differ depending on the location they work at. Especially the government schemes, the social security schemes, which are location specific. So identifying those needs on time-to-time basis, we do a group consultation, and once the group reaches at a consensus based on their needs and requirements, we also have customized a few forms on TaroWorks. We have also replicated their data collection tool in TaroWorks. So this also helps them to stay connected with the way they have been working, and we also thought this would make adaptability easier for them. So yes, these are some of the practices that we have been doing.
Okay, great. I also have a lot of follow-up questions about that. That's great. Thank you. So I think actually I have a follow-up question about each of those, and then maybe a final question. I know we are last 15 minutes, so I want to make sure that we can cover everything. Okay, so maybe Alfred, going back to your point about how you're sharing the data back out. The next question is, how do the partners stay connected to the data? I would say an important part of adoption is for users to interact with the data, especially data that they've previously collected, or maybe it's you know, organizational information that needs to be shared out to the partners. So with TaroWorks, we can do kind of both ways, but just interacting with the data is really important for adoption. So how do you do that? I guess, Alfred, you mentioned partner communities, so can you say more about that and any other ways? Yeah, over to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the partner community is a big, it's a big asset for our partners because they can access their data. Now, unlike the app where you need, you know, an Android device and only one user at a time can use the license, for the community portal, anyone with access to the login details can access that. So they do share that with their leadership, and so you don't necessarily need to go and do a presentation to them. They can access it in real time. So that's one way. The other way we actually use the community page is we have what we call call large partners, and these large partners are the huge NGOs that actually bring their partners to be trained by street business code. So they also have access to their partners' data. Again, through the same portal, of course, a different way of configuring that, but they're able to access their data, the data for their partners at the same time. So yeah, I think that for us has worked really well. And of course, the partners, they are able to download or export their data and do additional analysis outside of the key metrics that we report on in those reports you saw in those dashboards. So again, yeah, it's not limited to just those few metrics. They can do additional analysis outside of the portal.
That's awesome and very meta. Partners of partners. It's great. Okay, and Pragya.
Yes, so in terms of partners staying connected to the data, so like during our interactions, trainings, we keep reminding them it is your data, and we are just providing you with a platform to help you with providing good quality of services to your clients. So there are features within Pathways wherein they can also keep a track of the meetings happening, or maybe meetings organized by the groups which they have facilitated at the community level, local level. They can keep a track of the activities that are conducted, where are the groups going ahead with, how many groups are still active. Also using the report section, they can also keep a track on the trends, so type of vulnerabilities, or maybe any particular gender who are exposed to the types of vulnerabilities, what are the types of which are the locations which are reporting any specific vulnerability hardships. So that is another thing, and they also can use these data to map their own activities, their interventions, to consolidate the impact of their interventions, to maybe just take a step back and then again re-strategize, replan, and scale up their interventions.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like for both organizations, the partners are very involved in analyzing the data, accessing it, looking for trends. That's great. I love hearing how data can lead to kind of decision making and planning. So love it. Okay, and then Pragya, there's something that I wanted to follow up on your last answer as well. So Riley, let's actually skip 2 questions. I think we sort of covered one in the interest of time. You mentioned that different partners working in different areas may have different customizations, requests to localize the jobs, for example. I imagine that with such a broad number of partners in different areas, Alfred, you mentioned that your coaches are kind of working in 16 out of the 17 SDGs. I'd be curious to know, how do you work with partners when they ask for changes, improvements? What's your organization's take on customizations? Yeah, maybe Pragya, I'll start with you.
Yes. So, like I mentioned while we were discussing about customization, we do customization after mapping their needs and requirements. This is done on time-to-time basis. So maybe once in 6 months, if we receive such kind of suggestion, then we immediately call for meetings for partners working in same location. So if one of the partners from Rajasthan is coming up with a request, we hold meetings and then understand from the others also. This also gives them a chance to discuss with each other. Do they actually need to have these additions in TaroWorks, or are they fine with continuing to work with what they have in present, and then go ahead with that. So we do hold such discussions, and this helps to get a consensus and also bring everyone on the same page, because they also understand and they are also aware there are many other partners who are also using the same application. So they do realize this might lead to some kind of confusion in case we like keep making changes frequently. So that is why we do it on time to time basis, after identifying their needs, and then we try to create a separate form. So in case the need arises where there are multiple requests, where we feel okay, having a separate form would be easier, and this might also be less confusing for other partners, we do that. And we immediately post it in our desktop application pathways, so they are aware that there has been some changes, some addition in the feature, and then we hold a meeting to guide them through what are the changes and who this is relevant for. So yes, this is how we take the process ahead.
Sorry, on mute. Yeah, that's great. It sounds like a lot of version control that you're managing, but in a very kind of managed and guided way. That's great.
Mhm.
Alfred, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, just similar to Praja's case, we also try to minimize the, the number of changes we can make to the forms, especially the generic forms that are applicable to everyone. Again, just because of the confusion that would come with that. But there are specific jobs that are contextualized by country. So, for example, the form that we use to collect data on income is specific to each country because the data is actually collected in the local currency. Once in a while, yes, partners would come with recommendations and we are able to accommodate some of those questions, not all of them. I just forgot to mention that, for our direct delivery in Uganda, we actually have our whole team. We call them the learning lab. So basically, this is where we test all these things. So our partners would give us ideas and suggestions, and would pilot that with the team in Uganda before we can roll it out to everyone. Again, to just make sure that the transition is seamless. And for us, we only add those questions just a few days or a few weeks to our upgrade before we upgrade to the next version. But of course, that means you need to retrain them on those new questions because they are not necessarily questions that came from everyone. So yeah, it's a long process to just accommodate everyone's input. And again, because you have so many of these partners, you also want to have a standardized tool as much as possible. So yeah, that's, I think, one of the challenges that I can easily relate with Praja's case as well. Thank you.
Great. And just out of curiosity, is that your role at these organizations to have talked to the individual partners about what changes that they need and think through how to incorporate that? Or is that, or like what role is that?
Yes, at my organization, it's me and one of my colleagues, so we do it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in my case, we have a big team, the training team. So we work collaboratively on that. But all these changes to the forms and everything, it's then my team that does that.
Okay, great. Almost acting as like a super admin for this. Okay, great. Thanks. I think we're in the last few minutes here. So I have a final question, but if you have any sort of last minute questions, feel free to add it in. I don't think I've seen any. Riley, have you gotten any?
No, none on my end.
Okay. Okay. Get those in. So if you have them. Okay, so then my final question is, it sounds like some organizations on the line here are interested in maybe looking at a tool for their partners. So thinking about how you rolled out this system, if you were to roll it out again, what might you do differently? Or do you have any advice for the audience members who might be thinking about creating a system to share with partners? Pragya, I will start with you.
Sure, yes. So I think, yeah, we would like to share about our learnings. So over the period of time, what we've learned is being open to customization, but like I mentioned, definitely not doing it very frequently, but on a timely basis and on needs and requirements. I think this helps to make the application most relevant for the users, for the partners. Also providing continuous hand-holding support to them, because it's very important to understand each of the users' level of comfort with digital applications. And we cannot, like, there is no direct shift from papers to application. There are still a lot of things that needs to be recorded in papers. So it is very important to understand the users' understanding level, and also give them that time and support to help them with this shift. We also developed some manuals and tutorials, so that also helped. And another thing was having a contact point of person. This is helpful for both at our end as well as at the organization's end, so that both the side we are clear in case we want to check with them on how they are doing, or if we haven't heard back from them, or in case they have any queries, they do reach out to us individually also. But we feel to streamline the process, it is helpful and advisable to have a contact point person as well. And depending on the location of the partners, and in case they need it, then maybe good to have a multilingual system also available. So yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, lots of good learnings. Thanks, Pragya. Alfred.
Yeah, I think, and maybe this is, quite specific to Street Business School, because we collect, income data, and we also have to convert that to, a standard currency like the US dollar for, general reporting, and we do that on the back end of TaroWorks. I think one thing I would do differently, or the team would do differently, is actually to have the conversion happening on Salesforce versus on TaroWorks, because then you have to update all these forms in TaroWorks for all these countries, versus just maybe a mass upload on Salesforce. So that's something I would probably do differently. And then, of course, I think the fact that you have these partners from all these diverse sectors is probably also considering developing jobs that are sector specific, right? Like adding a few metrics for climate change, for example, a few metrics for health, for the folks working on health. So I think that's something I would do. I would definitely recommend. What has totally worked for us, which I would obviously recommend for anyone using TaroWorks, is just take time to develop the tools, pre-test them, and make sure they're actually working before you deploy them. And again, it's very important that you have resources for training and refresher training, like both both Street Business School and Praxis are doing that. It's also, again, because it's really the sector practice for you to invest in training partners to use the app, again, because people at different levels in terms of technology and the use of mobile phones. So it's important that you actually invest in that bit of the entire program, to make sure everyone is able to use the app and they are comfortable to collect the data. So yeah, that's what I would obviously recommend. And I mean, it's also been a really great learning opportunity for us that, yeah, the TaroWorks support works really fast for us. And there are all those different case studies. Sometimes you encounter an error and you don't necessarily need to write to someone like Nelly. I know most of them by name because I have been using TaroWorks for some time. You don't need to write to Nelly or Tabitha because they actually have, the portal has some suggestions of how to resolve those challenges. So really those, frequently asked questions, I think has also helped us. In a lot of my training for new team members, we find ourselves using that particular website to just, go through some of those frequently encountered errors or questions. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Alfred. We really appreciate that. I would really echo that point about testing. It seems obvious that you test before you launch, but in terms of adoption, especially with users who may not be as tech savvy, it really makes a big difference when you know that the tool is going to work 100%, or that particular job is going to work 100%. Otherwise, you lose a lot of that momentum. So I think that's really important for adoption. That's a great point. Okay, and then we did have a final question from Arthur. In terms of all the customizations, I think, Pragya, that you're sort of mentioning, how do you prioritize what you build and change when you receive maybe a lot of requests from different partners? We certainly get that with like our roadmap, but like out of all the requests, how do you prioritize what you're working on? Pragya, I'll start with you.
Yes, sure. So I think what we do is, in case we receive multiple requests for changes, we see how like which are the changes. That some changes could be very small, minor, maybe adding a tick box, adding a field, providing a space, or for example there are some existing information already and maybe needing some additional information. So we did receive some requests regarding, in case there is written a mother's name, so if we could also have a space for recording father's name, guardian's name. So we look at these in case the requirements are of nature where we can club it, or if it can be collectively come under one, like covered under one element, we do that. And in case these are small ones, we do make those additions. But in case of changes which are big in the sense where we might need to add multiple questions or multiple options, like I said, we do not do it at once. We do hold multiple meetings, and then we also discuss internally how do we go about it, how we make it do it in a simplified way, so that the other it does not confuse the other partners, and we also want it to be as brief as possible. So in situation where we can have clubbed information, where those are not big changes, those are minor changes, we do it and we post it so that everybody is informed that there are these changes that have happened. We also get on a call with them and inform about it. In case there are some requests for big changes, then we again look at map and measure how do we do it in a simplified manner. So then again we hold a meeting separately, and like Alfred also mentioned, we then need to provide a training to guide them through the additions. So these are done like that. Small ones, easier ones, we club it, do it together, and in case there are bigger ones, then we take time, we hold consultations with them and internally review and then implement it.
Okay, thanks. Alfred, anything to add from your side on that?
Yeah, quite similar to the same process, Pragya, as with our team. So the only addition in our case, we also have to look at whether it's actually applicable to, the broader group, right? Is it, a question that the other partners would be interested in capturing as well? And yeah, so that's For example, recently we added, a question on like the location, the type of location of our cohort. So whether it's in urban, rural, or peri-urban. Yeah, so we do add that. But of course, the only challenge with that is then that at some point you'll have, data gaps in the data where like, the very first partners didn't ask that question, but then these are the ones asking that question. You have to find ways of getting that information at some point. So that's the only challenge around, adding those new questions. But we also have, situations where we also remove questions that partners are not using. And we get a lot of feedback about some of the questions that they would like rephrased as well, or the way it's asked, it's confusing for data collection, for example, or it's not serving the coaching purpose. So all those we do put into consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. I think with that, I'm going to end it. We are over a little bit. So thanks to those who stuck with us. But Alfred and Pragya have shared their emails here in case you have additional follow-up questions about their organization, what they do, or about what they presented here today. So feel free to reach out with any follow-up questions directly. Thanks to everyone for joining, and a big thank you for Pragya for joining so late in the day for you, and Alfred, you as well. So thank you all for sharing your insights and your stories. This is really interesting. Thank you all. See you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.